So good evening, everyone. And there's a few weeks ago, there was an incident. We have a supporters, and she planned to come to stay in the monastery for many times, and it's always something happened that she has to cancel. Then finally, a few weeks ago, she make it. Then we said, oh, at last you make it, because she planned to come and so always something happened. She can't make it. And then at last she come. Then we said, oh, you make it, you are here. Do you know what happened that day? She has her high blood pressure shoot up to 240 that day. And she has to send to emergency. You see, all these things, sometimes you plan things, isn't it? Some, like the Buddha said, what you expect it to be is always otherwise. Sometimes you plan things don't always go according to plans, isn't it? It's happened all the time. So how many of us, that happened to us all this time? But sometimes we still don't learn, isn't it? We still keep, thinking that maybe next time is different. Oh, it's going to be better, And then I remember there was another incident that happened a couple of months ago. There was an incident that happened in China. And I think because due to the bad weather, they have to cancel the flight because the weather is too bad. And the people so mad at this, they beat this stuff at the counter because of the cancer. How people really crazy, isn't it? Because actually the expectation come from craving. We want something. When we can't get what we want, we got upset, isn't it? That's because we longing for this to happen. We want this to happen. And then when it's not happening, we are so disappointed. And then sometimes we got so upset, we think that's maybe someone, we will blame others because of this, because of that, Or sometimes we get upset with ourselves. Maybe we think that maybe, I'm not good enough. Maybe I didn't do the right thing, Sometimes even you do the right thing, still things don't happen according to our ways, isn't it? Our plan, isn't it? Because things happen, it's just like the Buddha said, things happen according to there's a multiple causes and condition. So our own making, our planning, our decision is just part of the whole thing. You see, sometimes it's just for example, like we want to plant a mango tree. So we will research, we do the right thing, we find the right soil, whether this is the right climate for this plant, this fruit, And we do all the right thing, we put in fertilizer and, we water, we do everything. And then there's a storm. The plant's been damaged. So who fault, isn't it? That's not beyond our control, but sometimes the problem is we think that we're in control. We can make things happen. But sometimes, some of the things we can control, some of the things we cannot control. But we have this unrealistic expectation. We think that, that we can make it happen. We can make things happen according to our plan, our ways. We want our way. But sometimes we can't really control everything. We can only control some part, you see. So that's why there is no right or wrong decision. So, our decision making is only one part, isn't it? So sometimes when things happen according to our plans, so we think that we make the right decision. When things don't happen according to our plans, so we think that, maybe I make the wrong decision. Actually, it's nothing to do with that. No one knows what is going to happen, isn't it? Like me, I never thought one day I will become a nun. Nothing, I never thought of that, throughout my life. It's never go according to my plans. It's always happen outside. It's never go according to my plans. I never planned that I'm going to become a nun. Even when I was young, I don't even have good impression of being a Buddhist nun, because I have the perception of, because when I was young, Normally when someone pass away, we will ask monks or nuns to come and chant, to conduct the funeral. So my perception of being a Buddhist nun is like a funeral director. So of course I don't want to become a funeral director, because it's not something that is I don't have very good impression of that, So that I never thought that I end up to become a nun, even a Buddhist nun, especially I don't have good impression of. They say sometimes things don't happen according to our plans. It's not necessary that it's bad, isn't it? Because sometimes we lock into our ideas, our opinions that things have to be that way. So when things don't happen according to our plan, according to because we have ideas of how things should be. So sometimes the tricky part is that we lock in. When locking into the ideas, this is the only way. It should be happen this way, nothing outside that. When there's things don't happen according to what we plan, so actually we think that is bad. Actually things don't happen according to our way or our plan. It's not necessary it's bad. We think that is a problem. Actually, it's not necessarily a problem. Because when things happen, that don't go according to our plans, actually it's the opportunity for us to learn, to grow, isn't it? So make us think outside the box. That's why sometimes it's not necessarily a bad thing when things don't go according to our plans, because it makes us think outside the box. We don't lock into our views and opinions, things become very rigid. So we are not open. Sometimes not necessary that, things, some like me, think before I was busy with a building project. I always have problem. Always have to change the plan all the time. And sometimes, so many times afterwards, I was thinking, wow, I told the other nun, I'm so glad that things didn't happen according to my plan, because it's better. It turns out to be even better, because sometimes that it really forces you to think outside the box. Sometimes we think that, sometimes having things don't go according to our ways is not necessary, it's a problem. Sometimes actually we grow, we learn more. Sometimes you just change. For example, we always have lots of problem with the structure problem. I remember our central walkway, because we are building on a gravel pit, and it's sitting on the cap rock. And our plan of our initial plan that is the roof, the covers central walkway, actually the pole, so that we use the footing is to digging in the footing, but because it's cat rock, because sometimes we don't know what is there until we hit it, isn't it? Until they dig, they can't dig, it's cat rock. So it will be frightfully expensive. It's going to rock breaking. It will be how many times more expensive, Then we can't dig. So what are we going to do? So we just have to change the footing. Rather than dig, the big foot digging in, we build a big slab. So we build on top. So we have a slab to hold down as a footing. Then we solve the problem. So they say sometimes, because if we think there is a problem, we will make it a problem, isn't it? So we think there is a problem, and then we keep focusing on that. They say sometimes it's all come from our own creation. Actually, a lot of suffering we create for ourselves, and we think that we're in control. For example, that is part of life. Because of the lack of the understanding, we don't understand life. We don't understand that this is part of nature. Like the body bound to grow old. So death is not optional, But sometimes people think that they're in control, they can control the body, Like they said now having this plastic surgery, they think that they won't grow old. That we just deceiving ourselves. You do plastic surgery only the surface, isn't it? Your part is still old. So eventually, growing old, is not incurable. It cannot be fixed. But sometimes we still have this unrealistic expectation, thinking that maybe it's, maybe I can do, maybe plastic surgery, I won't grow, and then, I look young. But even though apparently you look young, but your body is old, Sometimes we think that we're in control, so we try very hard. So sometimes it's very scary to someone when they face old, rather than we accept and make peace with that. Because this is part of life. What do you expect having the body? When we have the body, we're bound to get sick. We're bound to grow old. When we grow old, our eyesight gone, hearing gone, is, our memory gone. I know it's very scary to some people. That is a very scary thing, that if the memory is gone, it's just like, I remember this morning, I read that there was a story about these two old lady. They were friends for many years. They partook in many activities together, and they've been friends for many years. So they used to partook in many activities, But because of growing old, then they limit to just a few times a week. They have less, activities. So, and one day they were playing cards, and then one of the old lady said to her friend, said that, now don't get mad at me, because I just certainly can't think of your name. So, and then I thought, I just couldn't think of your name. So her friends so glared at her. Then at about about 3 minutes, and staring at her, glaring at her, So after 3 minutes, finally her friend said, how soon you need to know? This is something we have to, sometimes because sometimes it's a really scary thing, that because this is what we don't accept that is part of the reality. This is part of being, this is life, So, but sometimes we have all this unrealistic expectation. Sometimes if we always, sometimes we expect things, that the life could not offer. Then we are finding for trouble, isn't it? Rather than we just grow old gracefully. Yes, what to do? Even we have dementia, then dementia. If we have Alzheimer's, fine, Alzheimer's. What can we do? Rather we make peace at it. But if we develop our quality of mind, have the attitude, if we have the inner beauty. I remember someone shared with me that that the person partners that this man, he's a very lovely person. He's really very kind and very nice person. So even though he's having dementia, actually he's still very nice. He will say, like sometimes he thinks that he don't recognize people. Then he will say, okay, even though I don't know you, please come in. Come and have a cup of tea. And still very lovely person. He just don't remember things, that's all, Sometimes it's not something that is so scary, but sometimes we create a lot of problem for ourselves rather than we just accept that this is part of life. Sometimes we have a lot of unrealistic expectation. Like for example, there is I remember some times ago someone told me that her parents, her mother, she feel really guilty because of the having a good family, good job, and she find it very difficult to accept, and she feel guilty that she have depression. She think that she shouldn't have depression because I have a good family. I should be happy all the time. And actually depression is not a problem. Doesn't mean that you have a good family, you don't feel that way, because sometimes maybe your life sometimes may be too stressful. Sometimes you need to just relax a little bit. Sometimes when you worry so much, When you worry, and actually it's quite draining, you use up lots of mental energy. When you use up lots of mental energy, and you have low mental energy, and you don't have energy, and actually it's very easily, where you feel when you have low energy, it's very easily to feel depressed, So actually, no one happy all the time, isn't it? So if you leave it alone, depression come, it will go, everything arises, will pass away, won't stay there. But she think that I should be happy. I shouldn't feel this. It's a problem. If I depressed, then that is a problem. I shouldn't feel that way. So, and then actually she reinforced that tendency. She make it even worse. She feel even more depressed because she think that she shouldn't feel depressed. She become more depressed. Yeah. And this is part of life, isn't it? When happiness arises, when happiness ends, suffer, isn't it? So then when the suffering ends, happiness. This is always like that, this is part of life because we lack of the understanding. So we don't understand life. They said the more you understand life, the happier you are. We don't expect more from life. But the problem is we expect so much from life. I remember that sometimes we have people come to me like complaining about the partners, or or the wife complaining the wife complaining the husband. Then sometimes I said to you, before you married, do you know that your wife or your husband is just the way he is? He said yes. So I said, so what is the problem? But the problem is sometimes people have this unrealistic expectation, thinking that after a marriage, so I said, never, before you enter a marriage, never have the thoughts, have the expectation of, I'm going to change my partners, shape them into the way I want them to be. I said, you'll be very disappointed. And then sometimes people think, like fairy tale, after married, happy ever after, and then they try very hard, try to change. I said, rather than, before if you truly love that person, you love the person as the person is, isn't it? You accept, that person's shortcoming. Sometimes we think that, the other person have shortcoming. We also have shortcoming. Sometimes people think that I have to put up with my husband, but the husband also have to put up with them. Sometimes we think that they have, that actually to rather than to really embrace, that we are not perfect, and then we expect the other person to be perfect, and then we have this high expectation of maybe after married, my wife or my husband would change into the perfect, ideal husband or ideal wife that I expect them to be. Then they try very hard, and then you're bound to suffer, isn't it? You'll be disappointed. Rather than you just accept the person as the person is, this remind me of like sometimes how people say, oh, I regret, if I were to know that, it's like that, I would not have married this person, blah, blah, blah. I remember some times ago, one of my relatives told me, when her husband said to him that you are really stupid, she said, yes, I am stupid. That's why I married you. so it's because her husband said, you are really stupid. Yes, I am. That's why I married you. If I'm not stupid, I will marry you. And sometimes we have these ideas, of this expectation of, once you get married, everything will be fine. Actually, it's not. It's not like a fairy tale. We have this high expectation. And after that, I shouldn't have married this person, blah, blah, blah. I remember there was a lady asked me, I said, how to change my husband? Sometimes he's very messy, he's lifting all over the place. I find I can't stand. Then I asked her, how long you have been married? 24 years. So I said, why bother? Isn't it? 24 years, I said, so you haven't given up yet, still want to change him? I said, it's much easier to accept him, isn't it, than to try to change that person, Yeah, this is how we have all this, romantic, and all this fantasy that, house, after marriage will be like the fairy tale, happy ever after. It will not happy ever after. I remember this morning I read there was a story from this, a joke from this Gigi Gram. We received this once a month, we had the Gigi Gram. So there was a couple married for 20 years. And then one night, in the middle of the night, the husband got up and went down to when they were sleeping upstairs. So he went down and to the kitchen. And then for a good while, the wife said, why he's went down there? What he's doing in the kitchen? So the wife went down and had a look and saw his husband looking out the window, having a cup of tea, staring outside. So he asked, what's the matter, darling? So the husband said, oh, no, it's nothing. There must be something. How come in the middle of the night, no one get up in the middle of the night and you having a cup of coffee and staring at the window? Then he said, just let me know, what's the matter? So he said, you remember 20 years ago when we just met, when we were kissing on the front porch, your father came out, and your father through the window and with his shotgun and shouting at me that, you kissing my daughter like that. So you either married her or I will send you to jail for 20 years. So the wife said, yes, I remember that well. So why? So then the husband sighed. He sighed. I just realized, today, after 20 years, I just realized that my sentence would have been complete up. So then I was thinking, like you marry her stuck for the rest of the life, isn't it? Then now, at least you sentenced to 20 years, you still after 20 years free. But this one life, he said. So he was, So if I choose to go into the jail, at least I free, after 20 years, And this is how because actually come from our expectation. That's why we bound to suffer. We don't see that it's a reality, not being realistic, And then we think that we can control life, and then, rather than, we enter into a relationship, it has to be mutual, Any relationship have to base on trust, compassion, kindness, forgiveness. Then only you can enhance the relationship. So because, that, like for example, if the relationship is based on lust, it won't last, isn't it? Those chemicals, the neuron, only last for 3 years. After 3 years, you were looking for another one, But, because that's why people say, love is blind. When people fall in love, they're blind, So everything is good that just, we just become the emotional part, just overcome the logical part, That's why sometimes the scary part is that if we too much into, if we lock into our own ideas, and then we become so controlling, and then we try to control everybody, we try to control the people around us. Actually, we are not only creating suffering for ourselves, and also we cause a lot of suffering for others as well, And also, then we are not open. We lock into our ideas, as Buddha said, Like this is sometimes how when we lock into our ideas, sometimes can be very scary because we will twist, and bend, the truth, to fit into our belief, what we believe. Because sometimes when we lock into our ideas, it becomes like we believe this is the truth. This is the only way. There is no other way. And then that's why sometimes you become not open. It's just like one of the simile the Buddha gave, the Buddha gave. They said there were like a fool and a wise. they're going on a journey. So then they found some wood. So they pick up the piece of wood. Each one of them pick up the piece of wood. Then after that, they continue their journey. And then they found iron. So the foolish one so hold on to the wood. The other one, the wise one, will let go of the wood. He picked up this iron. So then after that, they found silver. And the wise one will drop the iron, will pick up the silver. This one still hold on to the wood, the piece of wood. He's still holding on. And then they found gold. And then the wise one will drop the silver and pick up the gold. And this one still holding on. So they say sometimes when we lock into our views and opinions, we become very narrow-minded, very rigid. We are not open. They say sometimes, leave it open. If things don't happen, sometimes things don't happen according to our plan. Actually, it's blessing in disguise. It's come us to be even better. That's just sometimes that, like you have the openness. It's okay. That sometimes that people worry so much, make sure that the things go according to the plans, and that they become so worried, isn't it? Plan A is not enough. They have to plan for plan B, and then plan C in case it doesn't work out. But sometimes we just have to leave it open, and we can only deal with the situation as it happened. So sometimes we waste so much time, worrying about it, so worry about things don't go according to our way, Sometimes it's fine, that it doesn't go according to our way. Sometimes not necessary is a bad thing. We have the openness. Sometimes we be able to think outside the box. We don't lock in. Becomes very rigid. So that's why, that is okay. Anyway, things is not going to happen according to our plan. It's hardly, I remember that we think that we have perfect plans. For example, in the monastery, we have our mobile phone. In case if our phone is not working, our landline is not working, so we have a mobile. So that so we with the mobile we still can check like bushfire or whatever. We still can use the mobile. And that's there happening. What happened? That we have the power outage. No power. Usually there's no power. The line we still can use the landline, but the landline also gone. And then so we thought that we have mobile. We still can rely on mobile, but no signal, because both the backup battery of the landline and the station, power of the station of that mobile, mobile, the signal, that is a station, that is a backup power also been stolen, both been stolen. Sometimes you can plan, what can we do? And then we ended up completely cut off. Completely, no power, no landline, no signal. Sometimes you can plan, isn't it? But if we're going to get upset with that, we are going to suffer, isn't it? So they say sometimes, it's okay. This is part of life, because some of the things we cannot control, beyond our control. So things happen according to multiple causes and conditions. Some of the things we can control, some of the things we cannot control. Like sometimes we think that, because of, sometimes we when things don't go according to our way, we start to blame others. We think that it's the other person's fault, and then we blame ourselves. So the first thing, normally we blame others. We think that we can't see ourselves. Sometimes we thinking that, oh yeah, because of this thing not happening, or like these people have this expectation that if I marry, like some people enter into relationship, okay, I'm married to you, so this is your responsibility to make me happy. So if I'm not happy, that is your fault. It's not my fault. That is sometimes very difficult. We can't see ourselves. That it's very easy. We can see others, so we can see the shortcoming of others. We can't see ourselves. They say sometimes there's expectation come from the craving we can't see. Like when we crave, our mind is moving. So until when our mind, we develop the stillness, we have the clarity, we can see things clearer. So because of we keep moving, they said one way to overcome this, this craving, actually is to develop contentment and to develop that present moment awareness. Sometimes it's always we have this high expectation of ourselves and others. Sometimes those expectations that is really being unrealistic. Sometimes we expect too much from others, and then sometimes the same, isn't it? We can see others, we can't see ourselves. There's sometimes I remember someone told me that he said, when I look into the mirror, I couldn't believe inside the mirror this old man is me. They can't accept that, is it me? I'm that old, So what do you expect? This is the body. The problem is, our mind don't grow old, isn't it? Our body grow old, our mind don't grow old. So that's why we don't understand this is part of life. We have this expectation from life that life could not offer. That is unrealistic. What do we expect, when we're getting old? Sometimes we don't accept. Sometimes we very difficult for us to come to the place of acceptance. When we come to the place of acceptance, accepted that this is part of life, then we suffer less. But we keep thinking that our problem is outside, so we try to change everyone from outside. We try to change them to fit into our ideas, and then we want others to live up to our expectation. Then actually, lots of suffering is our own creation. Even sometimes people meditate, and then there's the meditate. They said, "Oh, I sit for an hour, then it's peaceful, but not peaceful enough." So they expect more. So I said, what do you expect? Like, for example, there's someone told me that, he said this person used to not be able to sit still for even 5 minutes. He said, I'm very fast. I'm always running all over the place. He said, my mom can't catch up with me. She said she walked very fast. She's always, running around. Never be still for 5 minutes. Can't be still for 5 minutes. And then she said, now I can sit for 2 hours, even though it's not deep. Then I said, it's a big step, isn't it? But she still thinks that it's not good enough because we have this high expectation of ourselves. We still think that it's not good enough. They say sometimes develop that contentment. It's good enough. It's okay. Sometimes we don't look at how far we have come to, how much we have achieved. We keep looking at the yet. So we have this high expectation. We want more and more and more because the expectation come from craving. Nothing is good enough. They say sometimes that we look at it, it's good enough, and then have develop these qualities like forgiveness, compassion. So we be able to embrace others' shortcoming because it's very easy to. Sometimes people complain to me like the other person do this, but actually that person who complain also do the same thing. Because it's very easy to see the mistake of others. You can't see yourself. You think that you don't have it, but actually you have the problem. But you think that other people having that problem, and then you get upset with the other problem. But rather that we develop this, kindness, compassion, and these qualities of forgiveness. It reminds me of this again. That another old couple. One day this husband went to the doctor and said, I'm a bit concerned with my wife because he's a bit deaf, because he cannot hear me he cannot hear me. He couldn't hear me at the first time. He could not answer me. Then I have to repeat many times only she answer me. So I'm worried about she's being deaf. So the doctor said, okay, you can test her severity of her deafness. So you stand. You have to test. You stand 15 feet. From her. Then you see test and see, you talk to her, see whether she respond. If she doesn't respond, you go and look 5 feet closer. If she doesn't respond, you go a bit closer. So he followed the instructions. So he went back. So his wife was cooking in the kitchen, and he asked the wife, honey, what's for dinner? The wife no response. So he went 5 feet closer. Said, honey, what's for dinner? No response. So he went further closer. Then again, no response. Until he went so close to her wife, honey, what's for the dinner? So the wife turned around. This is the 4th time, vegetable stew. Sometimes we think that other people have problems, but we don't see that we have problems. Sometimes we keep looking out, expecting that sometimes this is how, when we have problem, rather than thinking that outside the object is a problem, sometimes we look in. Sometimes actually a lot of the problem is come from inside. Rather than what's happening to us is not really a matter. We cannot control what's happened, isn't it? But it's important that how we react. Because it's easy to see, it's easy for us to see others, we can't see ourselves. They say sometimes, sometimes people think that, oh yeah, I don't have this problem, only other people have this problem, and then they got very upset with others, then they think that poor me, I have to put up with all these people, they're horrible. But actually they're doing the same thing, They say sometimes, we don't try to get rid of problem, we look in and to understand. When we suffer, we try to understand why we suffer. So don't try to get rid of problems, because some of them actually is not a problem. Actually, we make it a problem. This is just part of life. We cannot control. So rather than we make peace, with every moment, every situation that we are in, rather than me, fighting with that, because a lot of things we cannot control. We cannot control other people. We cannot change others, isn't it? So the easiest way that we change ourselves, to change our way to relate to the situation. So it's not really what's happening to us is really matter. That we have to look at how our attitude, how we relate to the situation. Do we relate to the situation with kindness, compassion? Or just, to make peace with that and at ease and at peace with that. That's why sometimes that it's good that we lower our expectation, and develop contentment is good enough. Could be far worse. There's sometimes people tell me this happened to me. I always tell the person, could be far worse. Then the person feel a bit better. Oh yeah, could be far worse. It depends on how you look at things, isn't it? Depends on how your attitude. So if your attitude, you have the positive attitude, so it's no problem. So you don't see that it's a problem, then it's no longer a problem. If you think that it's a problem, you make it a problem. So that's one of the way to help, to overcome this, because the expectation comes from craving. So develop contentment, because sometimes we miss out a lot, because we keep looking for things that, we think that, our happiness will come in the future. So we keep seeking, but actually we don't have to wait for our happiness to come in the future, the future to come, the happiness to come, Actually, we can be happy in this moment because of our craving. So because we are running away from present moment. So we keep running away. So actually to develop that in our daily life, develop the synchronous, to strengthen your mindfulness. Whatever you do, when you eat, you are eating. But some people, when they're eating, they're thinking of something else, Then actually you miss out a lot of, you miss out the most delicious food, isn't it? So when whatever you do, just enjoy the process. So just enjoy each moment. Make peace with each moment. So if we don't have to wait for the happiness to come in the future, we can be happy, at ease and at peace with this moment. So develop that, to strengthen that. Whatever you do, it's okay. Sometimes when your mind wander off, you bring it back. Keep focusing. Because sometimes if we don't have we don't have the synchronous, we don't train the mind in this way, so our mindfulness is not strong enough. So when our mindfulness is strong, we have the brightness, we have the alertness. So when our mind is bright, when we alert, we have the clarity, we see things, we can see things clearly. But sometimes because we don't see that, how many times, I keep saying, people, keep hitting the wall for many times, they still want to repeat that. Even those that, things that, don't happen according to the plan, and we're still hoping that this time I'm going to make it. Each time we think that this time, we don't learn, because we don't see that. Until we have the clarity, only we can see. That's why when we are deluded, we don't know, we can't see the delusion. We can only see when we were deluded. So when we are deluded, we can't see. That's why the only way to overcome that is to develop your clarity. Until you have the clarity, sometimes it's difficult. It's so obvious, we can see others, we think they're so obvious. How come the other person can't see? They can't see it because sometimes they're locked in. They can't see it. That's like to apply that in your daily life, develops the focus, the synchronous, whatever you do, one thing at a time. Strengthen your mindfulness, strengthen your mind. When you have a strong mindfulness, you have the clarity, your mind is bright. So this is helpful. And then develop qualities like contentment. Sometimes we have to program our mind, program our mind, that's, remind our mind. The part of mindfulness also remember that, okay, this is good enough. Whatever I have is good enough. So we don't expect more than that. But sometimes when we overcome by craving, we can't see. Because when we overcome by craving, when we can't get what we want, so we got really upset, really mad with people. And then that this is how, when we have this negative emotion, actually is unpleasant. And actually we create suffering for ourselves. If we understand that this is part of life, what do we expect? You see, things don't go according to our way. We cannot control our body. We cannot control our others. We cannot control our children. We cannot control our partner. So, like Ajahn Chah said, he said, at last, joy at last. He find no happiness in the world. So I said, joy at last. I'm not in control. So don't control. That's why sometimes I let people be. So that's why if you can ask all the nuns, I never control them. I don't try to imagine. If I try to shape them to the way that I want them to be, they have to behave in a particular way. They have to walk in a particular way. Actually, who is the one who's tired? I'm the one who really stressed out, isn't it? And just imagine how boring life, isn't it? Everybody look the same. So sometimes it's unique. They are, each one of them is unique. Then that's why it's not so boring having all the things, the same thing. So we just accept. Just embrace. It's okay. Don't try to control everyone. Don't try to make everybody, the way we want them to be. And actually, this is come from our sense of self and our craving. So I offer this for Dhamma reflection. May this teaching be of benefit to all of you. So any questions or comments? Richard from Germany. Dear Venerable Hasapanna, I work in the clinical science. I try to follow 5 precepts, but my work involves killing mice for research purpose. Am I in trouble? The question is, this person, Richard from Germany, he said, I work in clinical science. I try to follow 5 precepts, but my work involves killing mice for research purposes. Am I in trouble? There's actually this is not an easy solution, because sometimes I remember, I just give you the simile that was from Ajahn Chah. There's a story from Ajahn Chah. So he went to there's a village that is all fishermen. They fish. That is the only way they earn their living. So he can say that, you are killing, you stop. You don't do So actually he started to teach them other skill, like, with medicine and things like that. Because he can't ask the fisherman stop his job, because he still have family to look after the family. He cannot just stop, because this is the main source of earning. So until that those fishermen, they have developed, and then they have other skills, then he asked him to quit the job. For of course, the job like that, it's like, but this job actually is that there is the Buddha's talk about in this Noble Four Path. This is the one of them is like a right livelihood. Like those you earn, when there is not the right livelihood. Like for example, you trading, this alcohol, drugs, and like lives like that, then this is not a right livelihood, because it's also affect our mind too. We don't have the peace of mind, So there's like that. I know we have people also quit their job because it involved killing. So that's why, of course, you have to earn your living. So before you get another job, that sometimes you just. That's why the Buddha said the first noble truth. That is when he said suffering actually is much more like, because of the translation they said first noble truth is suffering. Actually what he means is that life is inherently unsatisfactory. Whatever we do is not going to be perfect. Sometimes we live in, the being alive. Actually, sometimes we do in somehow, whatever we do, sometimes we do living on the expense of others. We cannot avoid. For example, if we build, there's some creatures, but sometimes that is part of the whole cycle. So that's why the Buddha said the only way that you're out of the cycle is not to be reborn. When you're born in this cycle, sometimes it's a difficult. We always put in a very difficult situation. Like for example, some people ask me, I have termite problem. So how am I going to do with my termite? Because I can't allow the termite, to eat up my whole, to damage my whole house, So that's why sometimes there's no easy solution. That's part of life. Sometimes we can only do the best. That's why whatever we do is our motive, our intention. That do we have the intention to kill, to harm? So always go back there. We try our best, So I know some people get worried about, I'm, that I will kill, that's how to practice the first precept, not to kill, because sometimes I said if you carry guilt, I said no one in this world can practice Buddhism. I said sometimes you walk, you might step on the ants, what can you do? You don't have intention to kill, isn't it? But if you worry about that, then you create a lot of suffering for yourself. I said no one can practice Buddhism, isn't it? So I said this is like we cannot avoid sometimes, but it's always good that not to involve in this profession, because it's in this noble fourth path that is not the right livelihood. So Anne from Malaysia, please advise how to use Buddhist wisdom to maintain sanity of mind in a court case, in trying to use Dharma teaching to cope with these obstacles. Actually, this is always go back to, for example, I have people asking me that, they go through a court case and how am I going to perform, and what do I say, what shall I say? I said the only thing that you can maintain that is to develop your peace and calm. So I said, you try to make your mind as peaceful as you could. I said, because when you have the peace and calm, you have more clarity. So this is the only way, to maintain that. Because when you develop that, I said you just do what you can. You just said what you need to say. Sometimes I said you try so hard, what should I say? I try to memorize, should I say that, should I say this? I said it's difficult. I said sometimes you being honest to yourself, just honest, just to set, just being honest to oneself, and also yes, to maintain that actually we have to develop the stillness that strengthen our clarity. So when we have the clarity, we have the inner stability. So when we have the inner stability, then we be able to maintain this the sanity of mind. Because when someone have completely no mindfulness, that person is insane. So we have different level of mindfulness. So the only way, there's no shortcut. You have to develop, strengthen your mindfulness. And it's just like the mental muscles you need to develop, and you have to keep strengthening. It's just like you have to go to the gym to build up your body muscles, and the same thing, you have to build up your mental muscles, and that you have to keep practicing. That is the only way to maintain that, to strengthen your mindfulness. So any questions or comments? Okay.
Ajahn Hasapanna, thank you for the very interesting, deep talk,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd like to say, just how you're talking about strengthening our mindfulness, it came to my mind, when I have problem, if it's a disturbing problem, this thing, what I do is first I calm myself down,
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll break it into three parts, First thing is the situation, especially if it's an unpleasant situation, And then second thing is my mind, I see how my mind reacts to the situation, and from there, how I feel, the disturbing feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this way it helps,
Mm-hmm.
For me,
Yeah.
So you have to calm down first, and then you work on that, work on impermanence, no attachment, this thing, and then it helps. And then you find that once, if you calm down, the disturbing feelings dissolve, then you find that the problem is like solved.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when you're feeling, the disturbing feeling, that's the problem, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah,
that's parts,
yeah, true. Because when you are in that frame of mind, when you are agitated, irritated, actually sometimes you can't really think. You just first of all you have to calm down your mind first. So especially you have confusion, and some people say, I'm not sure whether this how to make the decision, whether this is right decision or what shall I do. I said, when you don't have the clarity, I said you don't try to make any decision. Isn't it? You haven't got the clarity. I said, you just walk away. I said, sometimes we think that I have to resolve the problem. I have to solve it. I said, sometimes you don't have to. You just walk away to make your mind as peaceful as you could. Then when you calm down, you can see things with the clarity. Because sometimes we try to resolve our problems while we still have that kind of, our mind is like very agitated and irritated. And actually the best thing is to walk away, to find a peaceful place, to calm ourselves down. Yeah. So any more questions or comments?
Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? It's okay. So that's it. Okay. Thank you for listening.